Hello, it's time for Combat Patrol Carnage. We're back with issue 51 and it's time to, well, cover the entirety of the magazine. So we've got 2 pages of lore looking at the Votann, the basics behind them and their chronicles. And then we take a look at our narrative campaign, Fires of Conflict. And yeah, we'll go through the ins and outs of how that's going to work so that we can play through some of these in future videos in this series. I might be doing a sub-series for this after the magazine is completed, so stay tuned for news on that. So yeah, for the narrative campaign, they've done a really good job. Love how they've given each faction their own sort of little bit they were trying to do. Their narrative hook, as you would say. I love the introduction to the setting. It reads very much like a Dawn of War intro scene, so expect some voice acting later on. But yeah, they've done a great job on it, and I'm looking forward to playing games of it in the future. So, right, we got some reading to do, so let's head to the table. But before we do, don't forget to, of course, do all the usual. Like this video if you're enjoying the content, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and drop me a comment down below. I want to know from you guys, do you want to see some additional combat patrols added into the narrative campaign, or would you like to see me take this campaign and do it with some different combat patrols? I do have Sisters, Space Marines and a few others like I've mentioned before, so if you'd like to see these in action in a campaign setting, let me know and I'll try and work something out, adding them in or swapping out ones I'm not too bothered by. And let me know how you're getting on your hobby as usual, love hearing back from you guys. Finally then, Combat Patrol Carnage is proudly sponsored by warbay.shop, your one-stop supply for all your hobby needs. They stock everything you need from getting started to expanding your force, and of course grabbing those essential paints and hobby supplies as well. This game stocks the entire Warhammer range, including pre-orders with a massive 20% off. So if you're looking for those brand new releases, check them out and get your orders in as quickly as you can. All done through the warbay.shop website, which you can find a link for in the video description. Right, let's head to the table and do some reading. Hello everyone, welcome back to Combat Patrol, looking at issue 51, and we're going to finish the magazine off in this video as we've got 2 pages of lore and we've got the start of our narrative campaign, which is looking good, I must admit. I'm kind of excited to get started on the campaign, but having done some preemptive reading on some of the missions, it flavors that you should fight and win certain battles against certain armies for the end result of a specific mission being the last one played in a series of 3. So yeah, definitely going to be worth waiting for all of the issues to arrive. So once that happens, we have everything fully painted, based and looking good. We can get on and play our campaign, and it'll keep the series going for a little bit longer, and will also make for a great addition or replacement, seeing as I'm not going to be interested in the Age of Sigmar Spearhead partworks, as yeah, not really the biggest fan of AOS. I'm losing a lot of my interest for it. I was hoping 4.0 would have been keeping me interested, especially with the new Skaven stuff, and yes, I've loved the models and such. But I don't know, there's something about it I don't quite like, whether it's the hook of the lore or what, but yeah, something about Age of Sigmar just doesn't gel with me. I'm guessing I'm more of a sci-fi and traditional fantasy, looking at Lord of the Rings and such. Age of Sigmar seems to sci-fi fantasy, or high fantasy, I guess you could call it. But yeah, there's definitely something about it that it's trying to be 2 types of thing. I mean, you've got the realms which you have to travel to, so it's kind of sci-fi in that aspect, and it's got a lot of fantasy elements and steampunk and such thrown in as well. it's just too much going on for me to handle. So yeah, I'm leaving Age of Sigmar behind, I'm afraid. So let's focus then on Combat Patrol. We'll put our models to the side, file away our new data cards, and we can dive into some lore on the Votann and a look at that campaign. So enough warbling for me, let's get on and dive into this issue. Right, let's get through this. We've got quite a lot to read, so we'll dive into our lore articles first. So we've got a look at the Leagues of Votann, who will be introduced next issue. So, Leagues of Votann, Seekers and Delvers. The line of an army of Leagues of Votann stands unwavering under fire. The kin are a species of clones who live in the unforgiving environment of the galactic core. They are watched over by their venerated ancestor cores, which they call Votann, who provide them with guidance, equipment, and protection as they work to acquire the resources they need to survive and advance their kindred's interests. The kin's entire way of life revolves around the acquisition of resources. Their methods are varied, but the oldest and most developed of their industries is mining, a craft for which they have developed an array of sophisticated and often destructive technologies. They employ these where they will, not caring if whole planets or even entire civilizations are wiped out as long as their quotas are met. They take no inherent joy in destruction, but firmly believe that whoever strives the hardest in pursuit of something deserves to acquire it, while those who fail to struggle as hard forfeit any rights to the prize. That said, the kin are nothing if not pragmatic, and can work and fight alongside almost anyone when it suits their interests. But any potential partner must remember that they will always consider their own needs first, and as circumstances change, they may turn swiftly from a stalwart ally into an implacable enemy. The kin at war. The kin are a brutally efficient and highly advanced species. Their determination is legendary. For being pragmatists at heart, they are just as happy to withdraw as they are to sacrifice themselves as prudence demands. Their nigh immovable lines are made up of heavy troops and vehicles. Each of these are equipped with some of the most reliable and deadly weapons in the galaxy, backed up by the expert training and stalwart dedication that the kin are famous for. A Hecaton land fortress carries forward a unit of stalwart kin soldiers. Forces of the kin surge forward to repel an orcish vanguard. The Galactic Core. The Galactic Core is located in the dead center of the galaxy. It is a vast region of space characterized by heightened natural forces and unremittingly harsh conditions. The Leagues of Votann have adapted to this unique and punishing environment in a way that no other faction have been able to. Many other species have the occasional tale of foolhardy explorers lost in the expanse, and perhaps even half-true fables of ones who survived their daring exploits. But only the kin seem to have truly thrived there and been able to forge powerful civilizations that rival the might of any other faction in the galaxy. So there we go. First look at the kin, and I think I can see myself as a member of them. I'm gonna definitely be looking forward to building and painting and collecting these guys over the course of the issues. And yeah, they are a kind of fun little faction, very technologically advanced, so somewhere between Tau and Imperium, because they have a lot of Imperium-based technology with bolters, las, conversion beamers, etc. But they're more advanced, much like the Tau, in the fact they got rail weapons, they've got finessed armor, they've got I suppose drone technology in a way. They got the little cyber things that work with them. Yeah, pretty cool. Looking forward to learning more about these guys and possibly expanding the combat patrol. Chronicles of the Kin. The story of the kin, their origin, and their arrival in the Galactic Core is a mixture of fact and legend. What cannot be in doubt is how well they have adapted to the demands of their home territory, easily meeting both the physical and mental demands of this extreme environment. The kin are an ancient people. Much of their history is kept in the venerable ancestor cores that house the species' collective memory. which they refer to as the Votann. But some of their history is so ancient and is buried so deep within ancestor cores that it is, for all intents and purpose, lost to myth. However, the kin maintain what they call first truths as articles of faith to explain their origins and purpose. One of these first truths is that many thousands of years ago the ancestors left from pre-imperial Terra and travelled to the galactic core. What they can be more certain of is the role that the Votann had played in the development of their species since then. For the kin are a species of clones, and the ancestor cores are not just static repositories of knowledge. They have shaped and guided the progression of the kin, providing them with the equipment that they need and even changing their physiology generation upon generation to better suit the harsh and unforgiving environments of the galactic core. Starfarers. The earliest of the kin lived aboard great void ships and spent much of their time engaged in highly dangerous mining expeditions. From this harsh lifestyle grew a diligent, pragmatic and uncompromising culture, well attuned to the detail and focused on survival above all else. So yeah, there we go, a little bit more about the Chronicles of the Kin, and it goes there to what I was saying, that they are Imperium-ish in origin. So they left from the pre-unified Terra before the Horus Heresy, and it's rumoured that they took with them what was deemed heretical technology, so effectively AI, as the cores are living, thinking machines, just as much as, well, our modern-ish day AI. Finally then, we got a little bit more about some of the war zones of the kin. So, Orgvea. The kin do not think of the Great Rift as a single phenomenon the way that many species do. Instead, they view it as a collection of areas and warp storms. One of the largest they have named Orgvea, or one of the great Furion League's greatest warriors, Utar the Destined, has led his forces against chaos incursions in this area. Chthonian berserks lead the charge into the ranks of the World Eaters. The mercenaries of the Kronos hegemony lead the charge against the invading Tyranids. Warzone Bastior. In Warzone Bastior, most of the kin involved in the conflict have travelled there to fight for the Imperium as mercenaries. They do not just work for pay, but also to gain a better understanding of the capabilities and tactics of other species. For the kin understand the value and power of knowledge. The Kalnath Expanse. While conflict rages in the Kalnath Expanse, the kin seek to exploit the situation to their advantage. Conflict between the Imperium, the Tau Empire, Tyranids, and Orcs has left the forces stretched thin, leaving great bounties ready to be claimed. The Trans-Hyperion Alliance and the Kronos hegemony in particular have been drawn to this area. So there we go, a few combat zones that the Votann have fought in, and against various different foes. We've got against the World Eaters, against the Tyranids, and against the Genestealer cults. So effectively all opponents that we'll be getting in the collection. So very fitting. Moving on, we got a lot to read as we look into our campaign, The Fires of Conflict. Fires of Conflict is a narrative campaign that allows you to link several battles with a narrative story with rules for determining an overall victor. Read on to learn how to customize and play this campaign. A narrative campaign is a way of linking more than one battle together and telling a larger story. The action still focuses on your combat patrol force, but it includes more than one of their adventures and spreads the story over several battles. You and an opponent can both play through a narrative campaign together, taking the part of different sides and exploring and developing conflict in your own area of the galaxy. Fires of Conflict provides a framework for this, but you can also develop this further once you become more confident with running a narrative campaign. In time, you can start telling your own stories of unending war in the far future. Which goes to what I was saying in the introduction, that if you want to see me add or bring in own separate factions that aren't these 9, let me know and I will try to work it into, well, the narrative somehow. Definitely want to kind of bring sisters into it though. Campaign setting. Deep in the shadow of the Great Rift lies a small group of planetary systems, unregarded by the main forces of the factions as they pursue their goals. But the fires of conflict burn here too. Against the backdrop of a galactic struggle, the people of this area still have their own story to tell. You will tell that story for them. So this is what I was saying, that it reads very much like a Dawn of War introduction. So here we go with my best Dawn of War introductory voice. It started with the coming of the orcs. Their arrival came as a surprise, but soon they had taken over the majority of the planets in one system, turning the surfaces of the planet into a mess of orcish warbands and crude manufacturing centers, churning out their ramshackle contraptions of death and destruction. Nearby Imperial planets bolstered their planetary defense forces and prepared as best they could for the inevitable attacks. The fighting came swift and fast, obliterating the resistance on many planets before Imperial reinforcements could arrive. Amid the turmoil, Chaos warbands began to encroach, initially settling on deserted planets before mounting raids on more populated worlds nearby and spreading their foul corruption. On hearing that the area was becoming overrun with Xenos and the Chaos forces, the Space Marines independently mounted an expedition to the area, but soon they began to pursue other ends, seeking after holy relics and lost technology. As the fighting spread, rumors of the Great Devourer began to spread among the panicked residents of the Imperial planets, and their doomsday cults swelled against the rising of the Xenos-worshipping Genocide cults. When the Tyranids arrived in Bastior, they cut a sway through all of the systems as other Xenos species also began to arrive. Each of the factions have their own aim and goals, often completely veiled to the other armies in the system. With so many forces in the area, no one is truly sure of anyone else's plans, and it's only a matter of time before the tension boils over. Not my best, I did better in sitting at my desk, but yeah, nice, really cool, dramatic introduction to the campaign. Next up then, we've got a little bit here about the different factions and what their goals are. So, Space Marines, as it mentioned here, they're looking to collect ancient relics. Tyranids, well, they're just here to munch. The Eldari are fighting to recover lost soul stones of fallen warriors and trying to preserve their own remaining force. Chaos Space Marines are here, well, to spread the powers of chaos. Orcs are here because they love a good fight. The Leagues of Votann are here because they have charted routes across the planets for resources to mine and partners to trade with. The Genocide cults, as we've mentioned again, they were part of some of the planet's infrastructure and have risen up upon the coming of the Tyranids. The Astra Militarum, of course, were the planetary defenders of many of the systems and are, well, kind of the forefront against stuff like the Genocide cults and the Chaos Space Marines. And finally, we have the World Eaters, so drawn into the area in search of slaughter. And yeah, basically blood tithe and skulls for Khorne and his throne. Next up then, we've got a little bit of breakdown about how the campaign works, how to use your combat patrols, and etc. I won't read everything, but I'll give you the gist of it. Playing the campaign. The campaign is a series of linked games. It is designed to be played through by 2 players, each fighting with combat patrol forces from the Combat Patrol collection. Read on to find out how you take part in mighty battles that form part of an epic story of heroics and warfare. So it mentions that it's ideal for 2 players, kind of on my own at the moment, so don't really have a chance for that, but I am my own greatest opponent, so it seems fitting. So the campaign articles and future Combat Patrol issues, you will get special campaign sheets that give you flavor text, the mission, and the armies to be played in particular. So our first one is actually shown here, which is going to be Space Marines versus Tyranids on Clash of Patrols. Then we've got campaign progression. So the way the story and the campaign evolves depends on the victories. I believe you're intended to win 3 victories in a row in order to gain a campaign victory. If you can't do that, the best you can do is get a faction victory. Using combat patrols. The Fires of Conflict campaign is designed to use the models, abilities, and datasheets that are part of the 40k Combat Patrol collection. The campaign will continue to evolve, and some of the rules and models that are used in this campaign will come in future issues. So this is what I was saying about waiting till the end of the collection. Yeah, we're going to have to definitely wait for some of the certain factions. So you're going to need your combat patrol. We get data sheets and all your cards and stuff that come with the collection. So they're going to be the important pieces you'll need. You'll also have substitute units, so you can choose to use these if you want to, and you get narrative games just to add a little bit of extra flavour. You could say that the chaplain in bikers join the Octarine force, as his speed will enable him to search the battlefield quicker, while the rest of the force distracts the enemies and finds the relics, etc. You of course have your faction abilities and such to use, so again it's a good idea to wait till we have everything before we start playing missions. And then of course you'll also need your combat patrol missions. The campaign articles will tell you which mission to play. We have all 6 now, so you could start playing if you really wanted to, but I'm going to, like I said, wait till I have all 9 combat patrol forces. Playing games. When you play a game that's part of the narrative campaign, you need to decide whether you want to use basic rules or the full core rules. There is no correct answer, but it is important that players both agree on which to use. The best way to decide is probably to think about which set would give you the most fun. So yeah, you can use your basic rules, which we were given in a lot of our tutorials in the earlier issues. So this is in section B, Basics. For me, I've got my core rule mini rulebook that I use when I play my main games on the channel here. So yeah, I'll be using that and using the core rules, I think, for most of the missions. It's going to be a little bit more fun, I think. It allows you the fullness, the benefit of all your weapons and the abilities, etc. So now on to winning the campaign. In order to win the campaign, players must play towards a fixed end point called a victory condition. It doesn't matter which victory condition the players choose, but they should make their decision together and finalize their plan before they start playing their way through the campaign. A player victory. So I'll read these through as it's kind of more important than the rest of the articles, really. So you could play a simple play victory condition that one player wins 3 games, they have won the campaign. Such a campaign will run for no more than 5 games, ideally, by which point one player will have emerged a victor. This is a way to play a simple and quick campaign. It also gives you the chance to try out different factions so that you get lots of experience on how the various combat patrols play. Faction victory. If you want to play a more structured campaign, you can play through the missions in order, one after the other. The player who wins will play again with the same combat patrol, whereas the player who does not win will change to a new combat patrol. If you are able to win 3 times in a row, you will have won a faction victory. If you choose to work towards this goal, you may have to play quite a few games until you have a winning streak of 3. Campaign victory. Once you have won an overall victory, you can read the campaign victory box to the winning side of the campaign article that you just played through. If the player has won a player victory, then the story will refer to the final faction that they played with. It will tell the story of the engagements leading up to the battle and the final struggle itself. If the player has won a faction victory, then the story will refer to all 3 battles that their side has fought. Yeah, this is kind of hard to do, because unless you can guarantee you're going to win against the 3 mentioned factions. So in the Tyranid example here, their first battle was against the Astra Militarum forces, then against the World Eaters, and their final fight was against the Space Marines. So yeah, unless you can guarantee you're going to win against the Astra Militarum, then the World Eaters, then the Space Marines in a row, these flavor boxes are kind of iffy at best, I guess is a way of putting it. Yeah, it'd be a good idea if they had like blank spots where you could put in a faction, or just have insert faction here. That would have been a little bit better. So there we go. Over the page then, we got a victory tracker. So here we can tick off. You've got space to put your player name here. You can tick off against which faction you fought. And finally, whether you've got a faction victory. I've already photocopied this and I'm going to laminate it so I can reuse it multiple times. But yeah, you can use the victory tracker to record your wins as you play through the campaign. Write the name of the players next to the factions that they are playing with. As they win battles against other factions, you can put a tick in the enemy factions box along the tracker. The point at which you win the campaign depends on the victory conditions you have agreed upon. So yeah, it mentions a few victory conditions, but really it's up to you and your opponent what you want to do. So yeah, I think I'm going to have a think about how I'm going to work this out and how I'm going to do it myself. So yeah, if you've got any suggestions, drop them in the comment section down below. Right, all what's left to do then is to see what's in our next combat patrol, and it's going to be the start of our Leagues of Votann combat patrol. So issue 52 brings us the Carl, and yeah, I'm looking forward to building this guy. He's such a cool looking model, and the paint guide is awesome as well. Looking forward to trying that out. We learn more about Leagues of Votann and their names, and we have the continuation of Sergeant Atherton's story, which could potentially be drawing to an end, as I've kind of actually read ahead a little bit. Issue 53 and 54 sees parts 1 and 2 of the Hearthkin Warriors. So, basic infantry kit for the Leagues of Votann. There's more paint updates. As I mentioned in the last video, it's going to be looking at the Chaos Space Marines and the Orcs, getting them up to date with the newest paints. We got our paint guide for the Leagues of Votann here, which is a lovely detailed paint guide, but I don't think I'm going to take it all away. Will do for the characters, but basic troops, yeah, I'm probably going to take it up to the wash stage and that'll be about it. But yeah, I can show you all the highlights and stuff that would be done on these guys on character models and centerpiece things as well. So yeah, more lore and stuff about the Leagues of Votann, as well as technologies of the world, and we also start getting our campaign sheets as well. So all in all, looking forward to that. But there we have it. Right, that is it for issue 51. Up next is our latest Combat Patrol battle report, and it's going to be the Orcs versus the Chaos Space Marines as they fight a battle of sweeping raid. So yeah, looking forward to trying that out with the Orcs and the Chaos Space Marines. But there we have it. Let me know if you've enjoyed this video as usual. Let me know your thoughts on how best to approach this campaign. I've got a few ideas. I'm going to try and write some things down and think about things. There's also the potential that I won't be using the actual models from the campaign, as I don't have larger armies and I have slightly different paint guides for certain factions, so I'll probably be using my own personal collections for a lot of it. I do need to acquire a few more units though. I need to get another squad of Guardians and build them as regular Guardians, as I've only built Storm Guardians out of my other 10 for my Iandan. But yeah, I also need to get another Wraithlord and give him the equipment that the magazine has. I've given mine Flamers instead of the Shuriken Catapults, which shouldn't be too hard to say they are Shuriken Catapults. I mean, they're both fairly similar looking-ish guns. But yeah, and I've got a totally different colour scheme for my Tyranids. For Leviathan, I've gone for the more traditional purple rather than the pinky looking colour that the magazine's gone for. But there we have it. Right, as I said, that is it for issue 51. Up next, we're going to start our Leagues of Votann, and I'm looking forward to this. So, as I said, cool looking models, cool looking paint scheme, and I'm looking forward to the rules as well. They look fun, even if they have changed in the newest codex. Right, there we have it. I've said enough, and I'm off to get a battle report ready. So all that's left for me to do is to say thank you all very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time for more Combat Patrol Carnage. Goodbye.